you were talking about racism, and I'd like to hear like maybe a metaphor or two. One of the things that occurred to me immediately was, of course, was Pat Buchanan, who's a flaming racist and talks about the demise of white America, and he's on national television. Would both of you care to comment on that?
Well,
I hope
it's not just him. Sean Hannity, Lou Dobbs, who originally started it out more as a moderate news announcer, has turned into the crusader against immigrants in the country and demonizing immigrants. The corporate media today is filled with people who really, it is amazing that they're allowed shows given their narrow-minded and bigoted viewpoints, but yet that's the nature of the country that we live in today, and of how the corporate and commercial media have gone increasingly in a conservative and right-wing direction. But there's also good examples of community radio, community public access programming. One of the things I wasn't able to mention in the lecture today, but which is in our book, is the critical importance of public access. People do not understand how public access, or have forgotten how public access developed originally. In the early days of cable, there were hundreds and hundreds of independently community-owned cable systems in the United States. And every time a cable company tried to start in a city, because you needed to use the public rights of way to string your cable lines, right, they had to go to the local city council, the local government, and then the local government would say, okay, you want to set up a cable monopoly in this town? How many educational channels are you going to give our community? How many public access channels for anyone to get on television are you going to give our community? What are you going to do about government programming for the city council or school board to televise their meetings? What are you going to do about programming? Are you going to have programming for the marginalized and disenfranchised groups in our community? What are you going to do about hiring? So these local governments, in exchange for giving them, these cable companies, the rights to use their rights of way, demanded accountability and something back to the community. Right. But what happened? The government, little by little, did away with all of these local regulations. So increasingly now, what is happening is public access is being killed throughout the country. It's being starved. In the old days of the cable systems, a cable company might have 16, 17 channels or 18 channels, and 4 of them were public access. Now your average cable system has 800, 1,000 channels, and they still only have a few public access channels. They don't want to give any more channels over to public access, so that you could create a youth channel, so that you could create neighborhood channels that would bring information to the individual neighborhoods. So they're using the same public rights of way, but they're not giving anything back more to the public than they offered 20 or 30 years ago when they started the cable systems.
Yeah, Channel 27 started 30 years ago. In fact, we're having a celebration tomorrow. If you're going to be in Albuquerque.
Unfortunately, we're leaving.
I knew the answer to it, but I thought I'd ask anyway. Anyway, we're celebrating 30 years, and we've been struggling just to stay alive. As I told you earlier, we trained over 9,000 videographers, mostly young people.
Well, and the other thing is the financing. When you look at the financing, your public access is financed by a per subscriber amount a month on your cable bill. Mm-hmm. The problem is the cable bill, when that, let's say 44 or 30 cents a month was the cable companies gave it at the beginning, the cable bills were only maybe $25, $30. Now the cable bills, a lot of people are paying $150 or right, whatever amount of money, but the companies still only want to give a little bit to public access. They're not increasing the allotment to help finance public access.
And they're underballing the number of people who are. They won't tell us.
Right.
They won't tell us how many people are.
So public access is, along with net neutrality, the future of public access is another huge issue in the media system of the future, and media activists have to get involved in defending and expanding public access and getting more resources from the cable companies who are making a mint. Because remember, when they started, they were only providing video. Now they are providing phone service and they are providing internet service over the same lines, but they're not giving the local governments any more money from the revenues that they're taking from telephone and the revenues they're taking from internet service. But they're only still giving money from the cable video bills. So they are, a cable company in America today is a gold mine. And yet the cable companies don't want to share that gold mine with the public. And they would not have their franchises if the public did not allow them to have it.
Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely. Would you introduce yourself?
My name is Joseph Torres.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I'm with Free Press, and there's a bill right now that Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin has introduced on what's going on with a lot of community access centers is that the money they get cannot be used for general operating. It got to be used for building capacity and buying equipment. And after you buy that, you can't use any of the money you get from the franchise fee to pay for your staff.
Yeah.
So
it's a kind of economic sabotage.
Yes, and so you see hundreds of access centers being closed down across the country because they cannot afford to keep their staff. And so that's one thing that your listeners and your viewers is Tammy Bowman has a bipartisan bill, and we have to get the laws changed in order to get more money, to be able to use that money to pay staff. And then two is there was a recent study that came out of the Alliance for Community Media that actually showed, a huge number of people of color to this day, we have it in our book, continue to get their start at access channels.
Absolutely.
That was true when Juan and I put that in the book in the early 70s and 80s. It's still true to this day.
Absolutely.
And the last point I'm going to make is that access channels are only places still where you can actually see your local government in action. And because the local broadcasters don't do this anymore, they don't cover City Hall and stuff like that. So those are 3 points I want to make, but it's critically important to save the access channels.